I'm Twisher Talk, and today I'm going to be talking about all about winter. As you can see, there's a lot of snow behind me. Well, when I woke up this morning ready to go to school, I looked out the window and it was very, very snowy. If you just look around, it is very, very snowy. Someone has built a snowman over there, and at my point of view, it's actually very big. So that just explains there's a huge amount of snow which fell. It's not snowing anymore, but still there's a lot of snow. Anyways, getting into this topic, winter. Some people think winter starts in November. Well, all of November is actually not winter, and some of December is actually still fall. Winter only starts on the 21st or the 22nd of December. That means Christmas is, yes, it's still in winter, but it's very close to the beginning of winter, not the middle of winter. So people think of winter as a big season. It's technically actually not a big season. And well, right now it's like the end of January, and they just snowed, as I told. Here's a few things about snow. That snow is cold. Well, almost everyone who has known snow knows it's cold. A few people have never experienced snow, but that's totally okay if you have never. It's just fun if you have. And it's cold, and I really like touching snow, but only if I have gloves on, which I don't have right now. As you can see, they're barehanded, so I'm not going to pick up a bunch of snow because that would just make my hands freezing cold. But there are many reasons why snow is cold, but one of the reasons is its color. Well, snow is white. Sometimes snow comes appearing another color, but that's mainly because either something's very bright and it's that color, like a red light, super bright, a super bright red light. That's a tongue twisting thing. And if it's shining on the snow, it'll make it look like red, but it's actually not. It's all white. And so anything, like if you catch something on top of snow, it'll stay cooler for longer than if you kept on a black surface, because black absorbs a lot of heat. So the energy from the sunlight, or the sunlight itself, will go and absorb into the black surfaces. So in summer, wear a white coat or a white shirt instead of a black one, because the black one will absorb the heat and make you more hot. So in winter, try to wear black ones, because black ones will absorb heat and keep you warm. So that's a good thing to know. And also, white reflects most of the light. That means once it comes, it bounces back, like a pong pong, which is hitting the table and going. So yeah, or a pong pong ball, I should have said, not a pong pong, because pong pong, I don't know if it's a word or not, but whatever. Anyways, with this known, we know where to keep a snowman if we wanted to stay for a longer period of time. And if you have actually never made a snowman and you don't know how to make a snowman, it's basically using 3 balls or 2. I prefer 3 because I like to look cooler and taller, which explains also itself, because usually the bottom one's used for the belly or the main part of the snowman. A snowman is not exactly a man. It doesn't have to be a snowman. You can make it a snow girl, or a snow rat, or a snow animal, or whatever. You can make snow sculptures. Well, how do we balance a snowman? Well, usually in a snowman we have one big snowball, and then one smaller snowball, and then like a medium snowball, and then a small snowball. The small snowball is usually a head. So if knowing that the small snowball is a head, we can keep it on the top, because our head is on the top and we want to make it look as best as a snowman. Then if we know, and if we think like an engineer, and if we know all our information on balancing and stuff, the biggest one should go on the bottom because it has more surface area for the middle one to go on. But again, we don't want to keep the smallest one on the bigger one because then the middle-ish one will have to go on the top, and and there's not enough surface area on top of the small snowball to fit for the medium-ish snowball. So that's why we have to snowmans are built with the biggest snowman, the biggest snowball on the bottom down here, and the smallest one in the top, and the mediumest one, well, not mediumest, but the medium one being in the center. Well, again, you can always carve out the legs, and usually sticks and branches usually come as the hands, and then carrot is usual for the nose. But then here's something I find tricky: the buttons and the mouth and the eyes. Well, the eyes you can put buttons, but there's another thing people use for the eyes. But for this example, let's say we put buttons. But then for the mouth and the actual buttons on the snowman is actually tricky to find because usually people use rocks for them, and it's very hard to find rocks in the snow. Like, it looks all white on the floor, so we have to dig in a wide majority of area. It just makes it harder to find a good area to sled down if you like sledding. So an area I would recommend to find stones is either near trees, but there's an easier way. If you went to the beach in the summer, you probably have collected some stones. If you haven't, well, that's what you did. If you have, then you probably would have took them home and stored them. So then you can use those stones to keep as the mouth and the buttons. And that's just a few tips. Well, anyways, there's another thing I want to tell that is about sleds. Like, why do we go down, and how does it work? Well, a sled during winter, well, as you can know, if you don't know how to steer a sled, the thing in the front, the rope in the front is actually the one used for steering, as it has came over time. In the ancient days, people used sled like the Inuit people and other native tribes which lived in the north. They all used some sort of rope or string to keep, and then that would be able to steer them around. Or sometimes they'd use that. Sometimes they use that to tie to dogs and stuff, which would lead them to travel. But just like that, that can be used for steering. The controls are, well, you can figure out, you can experiment by holding on that rope and turning a different size, checking in different pressures. Here's the tip, don't try to turn it too hard, or pull it so hard, because then you could tip over, and I don't like falling into the snow face first. And that's about sleds. But now, how does it move? So when a sled moves, it creates friction, which is what happens when two masses or objects rub together. And friction creates heat. It's losing energy to create heat. So an example of friction is I have my cold hands here, and I can just rub them together very fast. Sometimes people tell to do this if you get very cold, and then if you hold it and then you feel it, it gets warmer because the friction is getting creative and we're sliding our hands, and that the heat is going and the energy is going out and creating heat. So that heat we can use for warmth and stuff. It's also other ways is also ways which we can power stuff, like by energy. So when a sled goes down, it creates friction, and just like that, the reason we're going down is not because of weight. Like if we had none of this force, we would have been like I would have been like floating around right now. If you know what this force is, you can tell it to yourself. If you don't, the answer is gravity. So gravity is what makes everything come down. Like if I jump, I'm coming down because of gravity. I use my own force, my force I get from my energy of the food I eat, to go up, like when I jump. But then gravity quickly makes me come back down. If there was no gravity, when I jumped, I would have been floating around and not standing in this very position. So gravity is important because it makes stuff like slides, hills, and other stuff actually work. Like when there's a slope, and like when there's a slide, for example, it's a sloping. It's like pointing downwards, and then it flattens out, so you don't get hurt because you don't want to hit your head first down. And then so when I go down the slide, I go down due to gravity. But if there was no gravity when I went down, I wouldn't even be going down. Only very rarely I could have. I would have been, in fact, floating somewhere in the air. So the same thing goes for sleds. It's basically like a slide. It's basically like a hill being a slide, but instead it's actually a snowy. It's like a snowy slide. So when you go down, it, the snow just makes it a bit more slippier, whatever that word is. So a hill is just like a icy slide. So when like it's hard to sled down when it's grassy because it just becomes slower because the grass kind of holds you up and the slide won't go down. Only if it's very, very steep. And I don't like getting hurt because I'm going down a very, very steep slope. So winter is one of the best times to go down a hill because it's all icy and more slippery so that your sled can go down. So gravity is pulling the sled down just like if you were on a slide and going down. So the sled will go down the hill and then you'll end up going flat on the flat part of the grass or the sidewalk or wherever you ended. So that's how a sled will work and go down. And also here's a few safety tips for on a sleigh. You have to mainly kind of hold on to if there are any bars or things to hold on, because if you're going down very fast you could fall off, and nobody wants your face to get smacked in to the floor or into the snow, because this is one of the areas where people can't put gear. Well, there are a few things, but people don't really have them. So yeah, so that's like how a sled will go down a hill. And here are a few snow fun facts. So the snowiest country in the world, you might not know, or you might think it is, but it's actually not. But if you said Japan, you're correct, because Japan is the most snowiest country in the world, which is, well, kind of confusing because Japan is closer to the equator than a few of the northern countries. And actually, yes, it was confusing to me first, but after a lot of research, it actually made sense. But if I would have to tell all that research now, it would have taken a lot of time. So a short brief thing is a lot about how the wind direction is going, because also another main thing is, well, when winter arrives, Japan might look like an area where there'll be regular snowfall and lesser than the USA or something like this. This might look like you might imagine if you imagined a snowy day in Japan. But actually, it can experience up to huge amounts of snow. And that's because usually Japan's an island, and in the water surrounding gets cold. It doesn't freeze up exactly. The clouds will still, the clouds just before winter will still keep on taking up, which could give in huge rainfall. But once the clouds arrive, it usually will freeze it up. It'll be winterish and it'll freeze up. So this can cause a lot and huge amounts of snow in Japan. This is true for other countries, but it doesn't experience so much snow. So that's a fun fact about snow there. There's also a few others that snow does not hydrate you, it dehydrates you. Even though snow is made out of water, it's about frozen water. Snow is basically frozen water, like down here. Even though it's soft, it's very tiny frozen water, so it looks nice and feels soft, unlike ice. Since it's basically solid ice, tiny small solid ice that you might think will melt in your mouth and hydrate you, it gives a little water, and Antarctica is actually the driest continent on Earth. It's very icy, and that means since we know ice is snow, snow will be dry. So snow is actually dry only when your heat comes in and warms you. When a bit of snow goes in your mouth, you'll immediately kind of swallow it, so it doesn't have enough time to quickly warm up onto your taste buds. So even though you have constant body heat there, it will melt in, but the water is very little and the dryness amount is more. So that was 2 fun facts. There's also, I have another video about a few more fun facts. You can go watch that, so the link in the description. But for now, this video is over, and make sure to like and subscribe. Bye bye.